Hey Internet, I'm Zach, and I'm here with Alan and Ryan, and we're here to do a spoiler discussion for Ant-Man. Now, again, this is a spoiler discussion, so if you haven't seen Ant-Man, or you just don't want it ruined, turn this off and check out Ryan's review of Ant-Man instead. But if you don't care about spoilers, and you haven't, or you have seen it, then stay here and listen to us. So, yeah, Ant-Man, what did we like? Ryan, start us off.
Start off with what I like, or just
Well, we'll do some positives. So start off with what you like. Yep.
Okay, the movie was insanely fun. Like, had a great time. Like, sitting through it. It's very funny. I loved all the acting, really, for the most part. Michael Douglas brought it. Like, that's one thing I was really happy. I seeing the trailers. I think I may have even mentioned it in our trailer review for it. I thought Michael Douglas was really going to phone it in with this one. But he had actually a couple of really emotional scenes. I think he actually did a really good job with. Like, I was actually really impressed with Michael Douglas. Paul Rudd, with, of course, the perfect casting for Ant-Man.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I mean, he just brought that he's just charming, and I love Paul Rudd in almost everything he does. Really, for the most part, even movies I don't like that he's in. I think he's always charming. So I was impressed with that. There's a lot of other positives, but I'm just gonna start with just the acting in general.
Well,
and.
Yeah,
comedy, so.
Best acting in the movie is Michael.
I didn't even mention. Yeah, I didn't even mention. Yeah, my absolute favorite part of the movie, the person that stole the show was Michael Pena's character. Was absolutely spectacular, a hilarious character. I mean, he was more of a comic relief character for the most part. He didn't really have much character depth, but for the most part, he was just.
He was funny in every
He was so
scene.
funny.
Like every single thing,
so
he had this charming way to him. Like every time he talked, it made me emote joy every time I was on screen because he had this optimism to him that just really made him just this fun, nice character to root for. And and one thing I noticed also, I thought about this a little bit. Since we're talking spoilers, you know how he keeps one punch knocking out everybody?
Yeah.
He said in the beginning of the movie, when he got punched, he said, I actually was the only guy that actually knocked him out. So it's like, it kind of...
Yeah, they set it up
explained that.
so
Because
that-
I was watching, I was like, that seems kind of weird, he's punching everybody out.
Yeah,
but I thought that was so awesome.
When Scott can't do that.
Yeah, and then he I thought that was pretty funny.
And since
those little details were stuff that I liked too in the movie. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. And since it is a spoiler discussion, we could talk about the fact that we could say what was really great. And Michael Pena's telling of the jobs, what they were gonna do, explaining how he got
just
information
his
and
explanations.
tips, and
it was hilarious.
And it was partly the way that Peyton Reed shot it, but it was just
and the mouthing by the actors.
It was just so
the direction for those scenes were great.
Yeah,
we didn't think that. When Edgar Wright left, I think all of us shared the same words.
Yeah, I was done.
I was already almost
so
convinced that this movie was going to be a huge bomb,
Mm-hmm.
or not a financial bomb, but
especially because you heard Paul Rudd's comments on it because he said he was like, well, I'm kind of disappointed because I took this movie because of Edgar Wright.
Yeah,
but
and
sorry.
And it was I kind of was like, oh, well, even the actor's not really sold on this new direction.
But Peyton Reed delivered. He really brought some style of what Edgar Wright was planning for 6 years. Like, he was been in development for 6 years. And then he brought his own style, too, that I think really worked in a lot of ways. I was really impressed. I did not think I was going to like this movie. I really did. So, Alan,
what was a positive or a few positives that you had with the film, Alan?
Well, I thought that one of the greater things that I did not see coming before, because I tried to keep... I know that some of the things were spoiled a little bit in TV spots and stuff, but I tried to stay away from those. The fact that it tied into the universe, which I did not expect, it actually ties in quite well into the universe. I guess it's a spoiler review, so I can talk. Falcon's cameos a few times in the movie are intriguing, and I just love the Falcon character and what he's done with that. So very fun to see him back, and they kind of him landing into the Avengers Tower and the fact that they're stealing from them and the end of the movie with just everyone involved. It actually really felt tied into the universe, which I did not think Ant-Man.
Yeah, I felt like it was going to be feel more standalone-ish, but it actually had a lot of things that connected, which was really
without being too convoluted.
Yeah, exactly. You can watch small things, but
it
felt like it was part of the universe. It felt like it was part of the greater universe.
Unlike
the Thor movies.
It fit,
and referencing Spider-Man. And referencing, they reference Spider-Man. They do.
I lost it. I'm so excited.
The end of the movie with all but just in general, they reference the greater Marvel universe.
What were you gonna say?
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say that it fits into the universe, but it didn't feel contrived. The way they came upon the way they came upon the Avengers headquarters is essentially Hank Pym sends them on a mission to steal from one of of Howard Stark's old warehouses.
Yeah.
And they accidentally go to Avengers headquarters.
The way they showed there was the Avengers, the new headquarters was phenomenal. It was like, shit, or whatever. Turn back, get out of here, get out,
go,
that was awesome. I thought that was really well executed because I didn't even see, even though they had those hints, it's in upstate New York, which is where they said that, and all that stuff, and they showed what it looked like and everything. It was those hints. Because we saw it twice, so we got, So I got to kind of notice that more as I watched it the second time. But they post these throughout the movie. There's always these little hints they put so you kind of be able to see
like Hank
where things are
Pym's
going.
little tank keychain.
Just
things like that.
I thought that was really well executed. There was a lot of things like that really well executed, and that really comes down to writing and direction, which I was really impressed with in this movie, which I didn't think it would be.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was very impressive. Again, we touched upon the fact that it was. It fit into the main universe, but it was small. But at the heart of this film, and this is something I was really impressed with. At the heart of this film, it was a heist film.
Yeah,
and
which is kind of funny when he says.
Yeah,
that's
something. That's something I would say. That Marvel is doing perfectly right now. That's this is the thing I'm most excited about Marvel. What they're doing right now is they're making their Marvel superhero movies with subplots. Sub genres is what I'm going for.
Yeah.
Sub genres. You have Captain America, which is a spy thriller sub genre, and then you have Guardians of the Galaxy is a sci-fi space opera, more space opera sub genre. And then you have Thor. We were talking about this also. It was a fantasy subgenre.
Thor's more fantasy.
So they do that so well, and this was really a heist film at its heart, and it even had those elements, and even the way the movie was cut and the way the movie was put together really felt like a heist film with superhero elements. So that's one thing I'm really that's one thing Marvel's been doing really well. That really makes me excited for the future because it kind of honors these different types of genres of film through the superhero genre, which introduces these different genres to mainstream audiences, which I think is really great and really awesome. And I'm super happy about that with Marvel's doing that.
Yeah. So, and another thing, just another positive that I had that might not really sound like a positive or something that other people were worried about, but watching the trailers and then talking to people, at work or people in my family, they didn't really expect Ant-Man to be much of anything. And then another worry that they expressed was, you saw ants in the trailer, and he's like, "Oh, they're so cute," and they're like, "Well, the ants seem kind of campy." Yeah. I didn't think the use of the ants in this movie was campy at all. I thought it was fantastic.
Super and they became almost characters.
Yeah,
they did.
Yeah,
Anthony, rest in peace, Anthony. That was heartbreaking.
I could not believe that I was so shocked.
Actually,
my jaw was dropped, and it was over an ant character. And then after a while, I was like, he's gonna have to get.
Let's take a moment of silence for Anthony.
Okay.
No, but I was impressed, and not only with that, they were very creative about how they utilized the ants in the action sequences, but also in just how they were going about these heists, which was really awesome. Especially how they utilized these different classes of
exactly the different species.
The ants. That's what I love. They had the bullet ants for the kind of the muscle, and that the red fire ants to mold into different, and they kind of explained it in that kind of middle montage where they're
which didn't feel forced at all.
No, it felt natural, and it felt. I think that was well executed. Though I will say, I don't want to move on to the negatives just yet. The pacing, I had a bit of an issue with the pacing, but
especially near the third act.
Yeah, in the beginning, but we'll talk about that a little later.
Yeah. But anyway, yes. Again, with catching back on the ants for a second, the way that they were shown and sort of the species were played out, it felt almost like an Oceans type thing where they're like, this is their job and that's their job. That was just really.
It was really cool, and plus just bring especially when they brought back the cast, the Michael Pena and his group of T.I.
The Wombats.
And they brought them back. I was so thrilled because I loved them in the beginning of the movie. When they came back, I was so happy. They were great, colorful characters. They were great, colorful characters that were really funny. Brought a lot of the humor to the movie, especially how they played. They had great chemistry in the group. Playing off each other.
Definitely.
Even though the one Russian guy his accent was a little over the top, but I think because of the tone of the movie was so kind of cartoonish anyway.
Yeah,
in a good way. It worked. It was fine. It didn't take me out of the movie.
Yeah, it didn't take me out of. I mean, yes, there was times when I was sitting there and I was like, okay.
Even Michael Pena was a little cartoonish, but
Yeah.
it fit with that
You guys
tone
know
so
Is
beautifully.
the actor actually
funny.
Russian? Like, I didn't know.
I have no
wasn't
idea.
told.
I have no idea.
It could be
I
that
I don't know who it is.
it's not cartoonish. It could be his actual accent.
Well, anyway,
yeah.
your accent's cartoonish. I'll just
a bit
say,
of a character.
so,
Of yourself.
yeah, you're a cartoon. Okay, so let's talk about Easter eggs for a second. I mean, we talked about, there was a few really big Easter eggs. I mean, there was a huge one that
Yeah.
Corey Stoll's character says when they're in the future labs in Pimtech.
Tales to Astonish.
Tales to Astonish.
Oh, that was a great
And
one.
that
line.
I fist bumped you over Ryan.
Yeah,
like,
it was
that
fantastic.
line.
Or over Ryan over
that's
you.
just-
I forget.
That's
I
the
fist bumped
stuff.
somebody.
I love when
was
comic
dark.
book movies do that because it's honoring the comic book fans.
Mhm.
Because like that's something like people wouldn't really.
Fan service.
It's like it's great fan service because it's something that a lot of people when they're watching they may be able to pick up on,
Mm-hmm.
but for the most part, people like us. That's something like us who read the comics and
Yeah.
like we know about the origins of Ant-Man, where he comes from. It's so well done, and that's something. I mean, the fact that they were able to incorporate it was just really. I was really happy about that.
Yeah, and I had talked to Ryan about this previously, and it sort of feels like it wasn't really an origin story,
Yeah.
but it had aspects of an origin story.
Yeah, because
That's
they
what-
didn't really show a lot of
Yeah.
Hank Pym stuff, so they didn't show a lot of the suit stuff.
But I felt like
it was
they
sort of
got
Scott
it.
Lang's
Kinda,
origin.
yeah, it kind of
but,
jumped into the middle of that, which was good. Like it wasn't like showing him creating the suit or anything.
Yeah.
It just jumped into the middle. You know,
Yeah,
we
just
see that
explain that
they
there are
explain-
Pym particles.
Yeah,
and
they explain there's a
shrink
past to
things.
Hank Pym.
And
We
it-
see
it
some
worked.
elements of what his past was that we don't really need to get too much detail, and they gave us enough. I mean, I think some of the exposition was a little poorly done in some ways. It was just dialogue, and I hate that that's lazy. But there's still times where I think it was properly handled. So yeah, I thought basically what you guys were saying.
Yeah, it worked, but yeah, exactly. That's basically what we're saying. So let's talk about this for a second. So I have here that I think at times the film touched on some pretty deep themes. It touched on like fatherhood. It touched on on all these other things, and it also touched on Hank's dark past. And I know, well, I don't know much about Ant-Man. I mean, I know that Hank does have a dark past. I know about things that happened in the comics that happen around Hank. But I'm not like an expert on Hank Pym's past.
So,
Ryan, would you like to touch on Hank Pym's
A
past?
little bit. I'm not totally. I don't have Hank Pym totally down, but I have him kind of a basic stuff. Hank Pym is pretty much just a total dick. In the comics, he's an ass. You know.
Yeah, and they didn't really.
They didn't.
Totally.
They kind of touched on it a little bit, but I didn't think they were gonna because in the comics he's a wife beater. In the comics, I thought maybe they were gonna kind of go there for a second. I don't think it would have worked.
They
Like
kind of make references to the fact that he might have been a bad person, like a bad father, even
and
back then.
he just has Hank Pym has this insane arrogance to him where he was kind of an unlikable character, but in a good way, which made him more dynamic with the group because he was one of the core Avengers in the beginning. So and he kind of was like that douchebag in the group, but like in a good way kind of. And he was like because he was just kind of really arrogant. Cause he was pretty much the smartest one in the group, and he was very arrogant about like what he was all about. And so I think they kind of touch on that, but I'm totally fine with them not kind of going that route because it doesn't really work, and it would have been too much, I think.
Right.
And I'm happy they didn't.
Yeah, but and then at times it was hinted at, but
Yeah,
they
that he
didn't
was a
go
bad
there
person, like-
because it wouldn't have worked.
Especially when he talks to Yellow Jacket Yellow Jacket, I guess I can't remember his name right now. Cross. Yeah.
Darren Cross.
When he's talking to him, and then
Darren
Cross
Cross.
says, "Why you said you saw me?" And he said, I saw too much of me in you.
Yeah.
That's kind of hinting at it enough that.
Well,
I
yeah,
think
and
that's
Hope also
kind of-
talked at one point about him leaving for 2 weeks after the which
Yeah.
they kind of were like, well, he was searching for her, but it's like your daughter still needed you, so they
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah,
hinted
like, come on,
like
buddy,
he's
live in
not
the
a,
now. Like,
but he's kind of
You know,
not a
Vegas.
great dad.
So yeah, let's go to some negatives. And I mean, since we had talked about Thor for like 5 seconds, we can talk about how Malekith was the absolute worst villain. Now let's talk about this villain. Alan, what do you think?
To me, this is the second worst villain that Marvel has done, behind Malekith, because he's just awful in Thor: The Dark World. But in this movie, Corey Stoll plays Darren Cross, who's I think he's a totally made up character because I don't think in the comics Yellow Jacket is Hank Pym.
I for one don't know.
I believe he's
like 18 character.
but he's evil from the start.
Well,
and
let me interrupt. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure Yellow Jacket was taken over. Like it wasn't original Hank Pym character.
wasn't, no.
He was a
Hank Pym
villain,
was
and then
Giant
Hank
Man.
Pym took up the mantle
Okay.
of Yellow Jacket.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. I don't know for sure.
Either
actually.
way,
Not totally big on the
he was
canon
evil
lore.
from the start. His motive is really muddy in the movie, but a lot of the times it felt like it was like greed was his major motive because he's selling the stuff. He's very much the villain from the first Iron Man, Obadiah, OBD.
OBD.
He's very much him, except without the like deep connection to Paul Rudd's character that made OBD kind of work in the first Iron Man film. So I don't know. I really disliked the character. I didn't really like how Corey Stoll portrayed him, but I think that he did maybe what he could with the story. I think you guys felt a little bit differently.
I disagree with you a little bit. I thought Corey Stoll was actually really, from what he was given, I thought he was excellent. Like, there's one scene in particular when he's looking down, he's in the helicopter, and he's looking down, and he sees everything that he kind of created, or maybe not created, but like innovated and took over. But he still was.
No,
he was.
he was.
Like, then he
I mean,
innovated,
he
and created,
recreated everything that would already
destroyed,
been
and you
created.
see like the pain in his face and the tears starting to form in his eyes. I think in general though he acted really well, and that was just a certain instance. But I do agree with you. I think as a villain he was very poor. One of the worst Marvel villains, I think, in general. But I think he still performed pretty well. Not like
I think
memorably,
most of it's written.
not memorably, but I think he like for what he was given. But I do disagree with one thing you just said. You said I don't know if greed was the total thing that led him. I think in my, or at least how I took it, it was his almost like a vengeance against Hank Pym and what he was. I think was such a huge like thing for me. Like that. I think that was what drew of him. I just think it was how it was executed.
Right.
Was my huge issue. It's just the way they executed it. I think was my huge problem, and I think they used a lot of exposition to try to introduce that. But I think they did really sloppily.
It was Hank as the father figure or this mentor character, because that's touched upon briefly when Corey Stoll's character comes to Hank's house, and they say it for like 4 seconds, and then you're like, oh, we see what you're doing there, Marvel, but it's not really working, and that's what we're talking about in reference. Other negatives that we can touch upon, Ryan, anything else?
The pacing I felt like was especially throughout the film, really in general, especially in the beginning and the end. I thought it was moving a little too fast, so I had a bit of issue with the pacing. It wasn't really consistent. So that's something I had. It wasn't a huge deal. It didn't like take me totally out of the movie, but that was just a flaw I had with the movie. Another one, I felt like awkward exposition. I feel like I touched on that one maybe a little earlier. I forget if I did or not. Explaining like just outwards, like just explicitly explaining different plot things to move the plot forward just through speaking and dialogue, and I think that dumbs down a lot and it makes things less impactful. And that's something a lot of movies do, but this movie is criminal of doing it a lot as well. So so that's another one I had, another issue I had.
To add to your point of pacing and how they move through things, I thought that the fight scenes were really cool and creative, but I thought that they like zoomed right through them kind of quickly.
Yeah.
Where we'd seen a lot of it, which not a fault to the movie, but we'd seen a lot of the cool stuff, and then like there was just kind of a little bit more, and then that was it. Like, I guess we're spoiler review, so he just hits him with the ping pong paddle, and then he's into the electric thing, and it was like that just ended that fight like really quick, and it kind of just, I don't know, like it felt like it could have been a much longer fight, which I don't usually say. Like usually I'm not like, oh, the fight scene could have been longer, but it really did feel kind of quick.
Yeah.
Especially considering.
Yeah.
This was our introduction to like him as the Yellow Jacket. Like we'd seen this tiny little Yellow Jacket suit the entire time, and then it's just this little. I mean, it wasn't little, but I mean, it was like a pun. But it wasn't like a super like short fight. But like it was the first time we'd seen him even using the Yellow Jacket suit, and then it's just quickly done. And then they go to the scene in the child's bedroom where they have that fight, and it was kind of like we see the fight on the train tracks, and then it kind of just it wrapped up kind of quickly. Like I don't remember much. Like it kind of just went kind of quickly after that, and then we had him just into nothing and all that.
I agree.
I also thought I don't know, maybe I'm missing it, but I don't remember him saying before that he was gonna need to like go into his suit and break it. I guess that was kind of his plan.
He said
from the beginning.
that wasn't the plan, but he did.
He mentioned it during the
developed like
fight.
that. Yeah, and then he said it's titanium, and I can't
Okay, yeah,
Right
that makes
through.
sense.
He
Oh,
said it's
I
hard
have
titanium.
another, and it kind of a little sort of related to that. One negative I also have with it is a lot of very predictable. And like one thing that was really predictable was when he mentions the idea of like going past the what's it called the
Subatomic
the
level.
subatomic level.
Yeah.
We knew he was. I knew
No,
right
yeah.
from that point he was going to do that. That he was going
Yeah.
to have to do that. For one, the other thing that was super predictable for me was finding out Janet Van Dyne's death. As soon right after the scene
when he
where
said
he
we explained the
lying,
subatomic stuff.
and then he explains it in that way.
He didn't lie.
Which I thought was a cool comedic
She kind
way.
of died in a plane crash.
It was an
a nuclear
intercontinental
plane.
ballistic missile. It wasn't really a plane crash.
Similar.
But like that was like that. I remember that was like, oh, so okay, so I know how. You know, so it made things like kind of predictable.
So,
So I mean, it wasn't a huge deal, for the type of movie it is. Like I said, it was kind of a goofy kind of movie, which I think worked. But it just that was another thing. I was like, oh, so I know where they're going with this. And there's a lot of different instances of that predictability throughout it.
now that Janet Van Dyne has been brought up and it's on the table, we'll get into some discussion points here. Do we think?
Sorry, I want to put one out and negative before we escape from negatives really quick. I think biggest negative with the whole movie, and we all talked about this just like a little bit ago, was the plot point of Darren Cross's.
Oh yeah.
What was that?
Let's talk about
the
that.
Pim Power messing with his mind.
yeah,
What
okay.
was that?
We
That was
all caught it because it felt very, very weird. Like, again, we were talking about his motives, and I was like, oh, his greed, and he's talking about like, oh, it's a father figure with Hank Pym, mentor father figure with Hank Pym, but weirdly in the middle. And
out of nowhere,
they just kind of like Pym is just kind of like,
it was a total cop
or is it
out.
Hope? Somebody says like,
out.
hey, it's not like you. Like the Pym particles are messing with your mind, and then we even see him like tearing up and stuff.
Yeah, and then he okay, so
but then
basically
it's never mentioned. It's never mentioned before. It's never mentioned afterward. It's just kind of like
she's like, I can fix you, and that was it. And it doesn't seem like it's a problem that Ant-Man's ever gonna face because it was never foreboding. He never mentioned like, oh, is that gonna be a problem with me or anything? It's so weird.
They mentioned it in one line.
And
it was never mentioned prior or after.
It was kind of, I mean, maybe this is what they were touching upon because Hank Pym does say
it
took a toll on him.
Yeah, and then he couldn't go into the suit again.
You think if it was so important, that they would
mention it
more, that they would make it more of a point to make that important. I don't want to talk about this too much because we talk about the negatives for a while, but yeah, I just wanted to mention that because that was like something that like made no sense to me. Maybe we just missed it. Maybe we just missed out on it. We saw the movie twice.
And I saw it.
And we missed out on it.
People, I mean, what is that?
I mean,
5 viewings.
if you want to explain as to why that makes sense or what that means, you can just do it in the comments. Let us know.
I'll be happy to read it because
I didn't understand
comics thing. Maybe it's I don't know. It didn't make any sense.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but we can continue with what you were saying. Sorry about that.
No,
you had a good jumping on point
we'll
too.
get some discussion points because we touched upon Janet Van Dyne. Do we think that Janet Van Dyne is going to appear in the next Ant-Man, or maybe in other
Janet
Marvel
being
films?
Hank's wife, just in case.
Oh, you're talking about Janet or you're talking about Hope?
We're talking about Janet, because Janet went subatomic,
and Michael Douglas had hinted to the fact that he wants Catherine Zeta-Jones to play Janet Van Dyne.
Yeah, but I think he was talking about for the prequel that he was talking about.
Oh, right, yeah.
That'd be, he'd be. I think in the Ant-Man sequel,
I think that she might come back, and I think she might be.
I don't want to
maybe even a villain. I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah,
because especially because they're not going to do the Hank Pym villain, but maybe. And they said time doesn't matter, so actually they could play her young.
Time,
and almost like a Winter Soldier-esque, where like I don't want her to be pure evil.
Oh, they did show her face,
but like maybe make her just
in the picture. They show a picture.
And I hate that cop out being manipulated. And that's not what I'm trying to say by manipulate. I was trying to explain like I wouldn't want her to be like mind controlled, but like maybe like she because she's been in she goes crazy or something, and then maybe Hank tries to save her.
No, yeah,
like something
I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be something kind of cool. Plus, no time. She can be Catherine James. Yeah,
because
time doesn't exist.
The time doesn't exist.
But the problem is, and I mentioned this quick to Zach, and I don't know if you heard. They actually do show her face because they show a picture.
No,
of
I saw that,
family.
but I mean,
I think that was a young.
Mostly.
I think that was like a.
They didn't show her.
It looked
full
like
face.
Evangeline Lilly a lot. Like that photo actually did.
They covered like there was most of her face was covered, so they left it open. I noticed that. I noticed that the second time watching.
I can't remember the picture. I just remember that they showed her.
Hope.
And another thing, so Hope. At the end credit scene, there's 2 end credit scenes, and in the one end credit scene, Michael Douglas as Hank Pym tells Hope, his daughter, that they're going to work on this wasp costume, or
Which looks
suit,
badass.
which looks so awesome. And so basically, are we hoping that Hope is going to be in Civil War or at least in Infinity War?
I hope. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in right away.
No,
I
no.
hope that she is in Civil War because we need more female characters, in my opinion,
definitely.
in the MCU. That's why I love her last line too.
Bring 'em
Where
in.
she says, "About damn time," and that's right because she was going to be. I think she was originally supposed to be in the first Avengers, but they had to cut her out, and they ended up doing Black Widow instead.
I think it
but
makes
yeah,
sense without
That was so
she, I
bad.
would love for her to be just as good, and she'd be more kick-ass than Scott Lang because she knows she has it down more than he does.
Yeah, and also
she's stronger.
has the wings.
She's stronger.
which
She's put the
seems
training.
Kind of
so
like
I would love. Yeah, yeah.
They didn't
And-
put that
and
on Scott.
Well, he's
character.
using the old costume, but I
Well, yeah,
would
but why
love
did
to
they-
see like her in Civil War. But I think there's already so much going on in introducing her to the movies while they're already introducing Spider-Man and Black Panther. I just
Right.
think that's not going to happen. Or I mean, it would be introducing her as the new character.
I'm not shutting
I-
the door on
I-
Infinity War though.
No.
I think it's very possible
I
she'll be in
guarantee.
Infinity
I almost can guarantee she'll be in Infinity War, at least in a small part,
Uh-huh.
and she will obviously be in the Ant-Man sequels, which
Yeah.
are going to happen. So inevitably, and so yeah, I would say I doubt in Civil War, but I want her in Civil War. Mm-hmm. You know, so
Yeah.
that's my opinion on that. I don't know.
I agree. I feel like we would know at this point.
Yeah,
at this
we would've
point in
heard.
the, I mean, she's not like the biggest name in the world, but I mean, she's a big enough name that if she showed up on set, someone would be like, "Hey, Evangeline Lilly's on set."
Well, not only that, because also she was in the movie. You say, "Oh,
Yeah.
and they're going to assume Wasp was."
No,
in it,
yeah.
you know, because
Yeah,
that
yeah.
wasn't really.
But I'm
much
just
of a
saying, like in
surprise.
general, like somebody would know.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
you're right.
they're not hiding her whereabouts for that long that she can. If she's in it, she's not gonna have a substantial role.
Yeah,
Like,
they were able to hide Falcon and Ant-Man.
yeah. I mean,
Yep.
but then
I mean, I didn't know until obviously
TV
they were spoiled in the TV spots.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, well then let's talk about Falcon and let's talk about that second end credit scene.
Talk about this, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll set the scene for the end credit scene. I mean, it's a spoiler review, so we can do that. In the second end credit scene, we open up on Falcon and Bucky, and then Cap walks into the screen, and they're having a discussion, and they're talking about the fact that they have Bucky, and we can't tell Stark.
Finally, something alludes to Civil War.
Yep.
I think
one of
Avengers
my
did a little
big
bit.
no, that's my problem.
Fair.
One of my biggest flaws with Avengers: Age of Ultron, and this is hard for me as a flaw, but they didn't give us anything. They left Age of Ultron. There's spoilers for Age of Ultron too, a little bit. I'm assuming you've seen it. Almost everybody has.
We're gonna assume so.
At the end of Age of Ultron, they're buddy.
They're
Everyone
on good
is.
terms, but
They're-
you can see throughout the
You
entire
see in the movie, there's small
Yeah,
things.
but they've always been like that.
Yeah,
I'm saying
well, I
that
know.
was nothing
They
new,
were less.
you know?
There was less conflict in that movie than there was in the first Avengers. So to me, I feel like it finally something is gonna allude to Civil War. It's about time. That end credit scene, although I love the part where they says I know a guy about Ant-Man and it pops Ant-Man Return. That was kind of a cool little thing there. Other than that, that end credit scene should have been at the end of Avengers. I enjoyed the end credit scene with Thanos to a degree, even though the only problem with that one to me was we'd already seen Thanos and we already seen him
We are
talk.
assuming he was
So,
gonna
like,
get to
that
go
was, like-
anyway.
I mean, it was kind of
So-
BA, but like for the most part, I was like, okay, well,
I had a bit of a different reaction because I know that we've talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
I know you guys really love that post-credit scene. I liked it as a point. I liked a few things. I liked that Bucky is in it because I'm really excited for Civil War and I'm really excited to see Iron Man versus Cap and that whole major team versus team thing that I think that they're building to. So the idea of them searching for Bucky for the first act of the film, I thought would have been really
I'm happy.
it would have
they
weighed it down. So the fact that they put it in this film and they're like, oh, we found Bucky already, so we don't even have to worry about that. I thought that was really nice. Felt really weird that they put it in a post-credit scene that not everyone necessarily... I view the post-credit scenes as not necessary,
Yeah.
so it's weird that they put it as so important.
I agree, but I bet you in the beginning of Civil War, you won't have to have seen that post credit. They'll mention, all right, I found it. They'll
Yeah,
mention them talking about finding him.
Yeah.
They won't actually show it, but they'll say, we found him wandering around or whatever.
The cool thing...
He wasn't really hiding. He was in that exhibit, just kind of hanging out at the end of the post.
But to me, I felt one of the reveals in it was like, okay, well, Ant-Man's gonna be here to help us out, and I was like, well, we kind of expected that.
Especially
but,
since he's on set. You've seen pictures of him on set.
So we kind of expected that anyway. But the cool thing that I did like, and I think you guys really did too, is that it kind of hints, and if you've read the comics, it kind of hints almost at the Registration Act. Now, most people have been
Yeah.
assuming that the Registration Act, which in the comic books is that all superheroes need to register with the government and reveal their secret identities. Most most people assume that wasn't going to be the type of thing they're doing because all of the identities are known in the MCU. But like he kind of hints at it that it might be a registering thing. They're like, we should have they don't say
Yeah, I don't know
register,
if
but they
it's-
said we should have.
I don't
think
know
it's
if it's
brought
a
this up
register.
to
I don't think it's a
start.
register as much as it's a sort of a treaty or sort of a boundary agreement or of some sort.
I think it might
I
be an
viewed it
idea.
as a register, like registering Bucky as a hero,
Yeah, I think-
as someone with superpowers to the government.
I think-
not necessarily his identity, but just the fact that he's registered with the government as somebody
Yeah.
with powers and the abilities.
I
that he
agree
has.
with Alan. I don't think it's as much of a secret identity thing because obviously in the MCU they don't worry about secret identities. Like straight up in the movie, Scott Lang, I'm Scott.
Yeah.
Did he just say he's Scott? Like no, they don't care about secret. The only one that's really gonna care is Spider-Man. So I think for the
we
most
would
part,
hope. If they
Oh,
don't,
God.
that would be.
It's important to the character. I guarantee they'll stick to that.
Yes.
But for me, I feel like, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's less about. It's going to be kind of like that same conflict with Batman vs Superman. We're thinking they're going to have to work for the government, and that's what Tony Stark is going to be pushing for. And then Captain America's like, no, these people should have their freedom and their rights, so they shouldn't have to work through the government. And I think that's what they're going for. Or at least that's how I'm interpreting it.
no.
Or what if they go for like a registering, like they have to register themselves. That's how I'm taking it, less as a secret identity issue.
No, yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, no, I was agreeing with you.
But you were thinking a different thing, or are you kind of thinking?
Well,
like
I was just basically using the context clues that Falcon uses the term accord, which usually refers to a treaty of some sort, and so that's the only reason that
I
I
can
would
agree
bring up.
between the two. It might
Like
even
yeah,
be
some
like,
sort of treaty saying that you can't. Like if you're not going to be registered, then you can't do this. Some sort of you can't do this action. So I mean, like that's what I'm saying. It's just it could be anything really.
I'm confused
hard
as to if there's some middle ground, like between like what I guess Avengers: Age of Ultron, Civil War with like Ant-Man. If there's some major event that happens that has Stark essentially keeping this treaty thing, because I mean we don't really see that in Avengers: Age of Ultron, which is I assume the last one in time before Ant-Man. So there has to be some major event that happens there because Stark was gonna give up.
Yeah,
he was
I
gonna be
have a
done.
feeling we're gonna get some in between in Civil War.
Some
between,
before Ant-Man.
Yeah,
we're
because
gonna have
we
some
don't
of
know. They're not gonna start the movie with this agreement, so
Yeah,
they might
'cause-
maybe they won't have Bucky Barnes right away, which would be unfortunate because I agree with you. I don't think we need to have a
don't need
whole
to see that.
sequence of of finding him because that's just gonna take away from what we're wanting to see.
Right.
You know, I feel like that might. To me, I feel like that should have been something that was solved in Winter Soldier. That's probably one of my negatives in Winter. I loved Winter Soldier. That's my
I think
favorite.
we all
It's
did.
my favorite MCU movie. I like it over Avengers. The first Avengers movie, which is a lot of people disagree with. But yeah, I agree. I don't want to spend time finding Bucky, so I like the idea. Of maybe hopefully they have him right away, or maybe maybe right in the beginning of the film, maybe the opening shot is them just discovering him. Or something like
Something
that.
along those lines. Now, things that we discussed, things that we want to see. Things that we want to see in Civil War, obviously, is Spider-Man. Now, Ant-Man gave us a taste of Spider-Man. Gave us a little taste.
It gave us it gave us a hint.
Gave us a little
was
hint.
fan
gave us a
service.
little taste,
Yeah,
and it
sort
was
of like
awesome.
their hint at Stephen Strange in Civil War, not Civil War,
But I think
Winter Soldier.
but the thing about that one was surprising and great. The Stephen Strange one, but we knew that was coming, or we know the Spider-Man's coming also. But I'm saying is, it's our first time seeing at all Spider-Man being referenced, even to a small degree in this universe.
Yes.
It just makes it. I mean, we already knew it was happening. We already knew it was real, but it makes it even more real.
Yep. Yeah.
Especially since we haven't seen Tom. We haven't even seen Tom Holland on set or anything yet.
No.
It's like this is our first. Like when we obviously knew it was happening. I'm not saying we were denying it, but like this is our first in cement,
There's a Spider-Man
in
and he's
stone.
been doing
He is
this
in
stuff.
this universe, and they're introducing him
gotta
just
get
like
him
that.
jumps.
And it may be in that little thing.
It is
Oh, he
important, I
swings.
guess.
He
It is
John
important to
falls.
Gotta
notice
get
that he's
jumps,
not
gotta
going to be
get
doing.
jumps,
I guess
gotta get
he's definitely not going to be doing an origin. I guess unless his Spider-Man movie is going to be a prequel to everything. I guess we're not getting an origin story.
No. They said he's not an origin.
Oh, okay, so
they already
officially-
said
oh,
they already
okay.
said they don't want to do any origins.
Okay, well, that's
in
good.
fact, I think Marvel said they're after Ant-Man. They're in Phase 3. There's no more origins at all.
Well, yeah, but it's just interesting
done
to
with origin.
note
I'm
that
happy about
Spider-Man
that.
has been being Spider-Man since
No, we don't need to
before
see
Ant-Man.
Uncle Ben die again. We get it. We get it.
Poor guy.
Wait, Uncle Ben dies? I had no idea.
I haven't seen any of the Spider-Man
Guys,
movies.
spoiler alert! Come on, I also haven't read.
No,
any
but yeah,
Spider-Man ever.
I was thrilled. That was like a small thing that I think I was kind of expecting something small.
I don't know,
but
but
I was
thought
still
this movie
shocked.
was done
But
kind of with all the
Yeah, I thought maybe
the filming. I mean, at least with the writing, I thought they were done by the time that Spider-Man
Well,
was
that's
announced.
I mean, it doesn't have
No,
to be
it's
initial
not, yeah.
writing
Yeah,
to throw that in.
It
You
was
know.
I
a
know.
Michael Pena was even the one who said it. I mean, like, it wasn't like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and
they
it was
had
a
the mouth
voiceovers,
thing.
but they had to do the mouth
exactly.
thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But still, yeah. I mean,
Um,
that could have been a small thing they could have done really quick. You know. You know.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah.
So yeah.
So, okay, so Ant-Man. Let's do some final thoughts. We'll roll through some final thoughts real quick, and then maybe give it a grade.
So Ant-Man overall, I really liked it. I thought that it was one of the stronger Marvel movies to date because as much as I love the Marvel universe as a whole, there's a lot of movies that are like those were pretty good. I think this was a very good movie. I don't think I mean it's a very strong movie, funny, fun. Really only weighed down by I mean, there's some other small things, but really weighed down only by the villain being really as poor as I thought he was.
Yeah.
I thought we were gonna boil to a
we
grade
go-
afterward.
do
I assume.
Do you wanna? Yeah, we'll do grades after, I guess.
Well, we can give it right now.
Okay, so
So
we're
right
doing
after you talk, like
what?
out of 10. Yeah, out of 10.
Okay, okay, that scale. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay. I thought Ant-Man was a very fun movie, absolutely hilarious at times, and I thought that it was a good movie. At the heart of it, it was an interesting subgenre for Marvel to tackle, and I'm gonna have to give Ant-Man an 8.5.
You're doing your other review. Are you gonna give a grade?
No,
here
I'll give my
too?
grade
okay.
here too. Yeah,
Okay.
it's fine.
We should not be doing this while we're filming.
What I will say, watching the trailers and everything, I thought I was gonna hate this movie. Going into it today, I thought I was gonna hate this movie. I was insanely surprised at how much I loved this movie. It's one of my favorite Marvel movies because it does what Marvel to this point has been doing best. It handles the comedy really well. It has a surprising heart. And it has that goofiness to it, but it's fun, and it has that down. Michael Pena was amazing, in my opinion. He was the best part of the movie. Paul Rudd was amazing. The perfect casting, in my opinion. He had that charm.
And I'm excited
He
to
had those
see him
small
fit with
mannerisms
everything
that
else.
really fit for that kind of character. Michael Douglas brought it. He
Definitely.
brought it. I thought, going into the movie, that he was going to be... total, like, I thought he was going to just phone it in. He wasn't really going to care, but he brought it. He brought it all, and I was really impressed with that. All the chemistry in that group of the three was really great chemistry. Yeah. To me, just the movie worked. It really worked, and I had a lot of fun with it. Was it a perfect movie? No, it wasn't. It had a lot of issues. The pacing I had an issue with. I had an issue with some of the dialogue and some of the exposition. Yeah. And, of course, the villain, as all Marvel's movies do.
Pretty much every Marvel movie.
Was,
I just thought this one was especially bad.
He was pretty bad.
I thought it was
poorly
worth noting,
handled
even
villain
for a Marvel movie.
for the most part. Hopefully in the next movie we'll get a more dynamic villain. So I'm going to finish that off. I talked for a while there. For me, Ant-Man, I'm going to give an 8.5 out of 10. And it's like in my top 5. I think I'm fighting Iron Man and this movie are fighting for like the number 4 or 5 spot for my number from MCU.
You guys should see this in theaters.
See it in theaters.
Yeah. Oh, quick mention also.
3D's
don't
not
watch
needed.
it in 3D though. It's not really that
Not
necessary.
needed.
We watched it on 3D and digital. Just watch it in digital. It's not really
Save your money.
worth it. It's not really that.
But go see it.
Unless you're gonna see it in like IMAX or like on the big screen or like Cinemark XD or whatever.
Yeah.
Thing you're gonna see on the big screen.
But yeah. So again, thanks for watching. We're Razzle. This is Alan. I'm Zach. This is Ryan. Make sure to check out Ryan's review of Ant-Man. Make sure to check out
spoiler-free, yeah.
Spoiler-free review of Ant-Man. Make sure to check out some reviews Alan's going to be putting out this week. And thanks.
You too.
I'm going to go make some tea.
Bye, guys.
Bye.